How is man lending himself to this kind of tyranny? And what are the levels of control? And can man now, the people who are onto this a little bit, who are waking up to this, let's just examine all the ways in which a man might be remotely controlled. Just in exactly the same way that, you know, a toy truck or a plane, you know, is remotely controlled, you know, a toy plane, or anything that's remotely controlled. Because here's my main point. I do not believe that we're going to see mass incarcerations, guns to the head, jackboots in the face, you know, in that way that has been predicted. That doesn't mean that there is not tyrannical action in the world. I'm not saying that a certain coterie within the hierarchy absolutely would love to do that, but that does not work to suppress the whole of America. And you have to understand the nature of the enemy. The enemy is not interested in doing that. It's had centuries to do that. It's not a fun anymore. The fun is the remote control chess piece. Look, he does exactly what we say he should do. Push that button, watch how his head rolls around and his eyes spin. The perfect slave isn't somebody who's, you know, being constantly whipped and beaten into place, because you see there's a great danger that that person will turn on you. They want smiling depressives. They want a tyranny without tears, and they're getting it. It's based on what I just said about, you know, this masochism, sadomasochistic, the codependent type of thing we have. We see it in ordinary relationships and we accept it. You have high-priced psychologists who will address it. When are we ever going to talk about the same thing happening on the mass level, on a sociological scale, you know, that's ubiquitous throughout the world? So I am looking at a tyranny just in exactly the same way Jim Keefe did, that many others have tried to, a wonderful clip from, you know, Alex Constantine and others. It is this remote control creature who, as soon as, you know, you press on, he's on, and he operates in a preset way. The perfect, you know, slave, the perfect robot, the perfect cyber creature. Eventually he will probably inhabit a cyber purgatory, some sort of, you know, state in which you are dealing with a technotronic utopia or dystopia. That's coming. It's coming because I see that man is suppressing his what is human within him, his instincts, his intuitions, his spiritual body. We're talking about self-murdered people here. And those self-murdered people who are in total absence of being and in total absence of, you know, selfhood are going to be absolutely screaming for, you know, these technotropic and technological utopias. That's the danger.
Fine. Nobody wants anybody to panic. This isn't about panicking. It's about realizing the governments have created the greatest bubbles in history, real estate, stocks, even gold, everything. And now these bubbles have to burst just like they did before. There's only one thing to do: get out of the way.
Mr. Dent, unfortunately, you've been proven right. I mean, we're sitting on top of this giant bubble. I liken it, as you know, to living on top of an active volcano. I mean, we know it's going to erupt sometime. The bigger question is, you've been scarily, eerily accurate on how this would start unraveling. But as you said, there could be a lot of different triggers. A major city going under, a state going under, Puerto Rico, a European country, Europe. Both their prime minister and president say they're, quote, in total war. And now there's just rioting in the streets and murders and raping. I mean, the world is obviously already to a great extent in a unevenly distributed depression.
Yeah, it is, and governments are fighting it with quantitative easing. Quantitative easing is a way of keeping a depression or deflationary deleveraging of debt and bubbles from happening. So they're just pulling out a fire hose trying to prevent something that's inevitable. The sooner these bubbles burst, the sooner real estate becomes affordable for young couples again. You know, the sooner all these bubbles burst so investors can invest in the long term and get some returns. If you buy stocks right now, the best historical models say the best you would expect is a minus 1 to 2% per year loss over the next 10 years. In other words, you're almost guaranteed to lose money for a long period of time because stocks are so overvalued. So yeah, that's what we're saying. You have to recognize this is a bubble. The next chart's a very interesting one, and I've shown it before, and I've added one dimension. It's called the papal visit omen. The Pope only seems to come over here at the top of bubbles. So we look back at the last major peaks, which I also call a megaphone pattern, higher highs. Each bubble takes us to higher highs, and each crash takes us to lower lows. That's why I've been saying on your show now for several months that the next stop on the Dow, probably late next year, early 2017, is like 5,500 to 6,000.
And by the way, let me just stop you. We may have to hold you a little bit past 33 if you can do that, because this is so important. But you're a scientist when it comes to economics. That's what you did for Bain. That's what you were taught at Harvard. You've got a great mind, obviously. You're one of the best out there. We don't obviously know why they come at the peak, but that's what I said myself, without even knowing you had this papal chart. I'd missed this one. Was it seems like popes come over here, because I went and looked right before a crash and right before global upheaval, they'll do these big Western tours. And so it's not a good omen. And you look at the chart, it's dead on that after a pope comes in 99, 2008, 2015, it drops right after. As a scientist, what's happening here?
Well, you know, when somebody's going to do a tour like this, when people feel the best, you know, and so you know, this is a time where this could happen, and everybody wanted to happen. So I think that's probably the reason. Of course, this is not the reason I.
So he's here to scoop offerings.
Huh?
So he's here to get offerings.
Yeah, and it's a good time to do it. It's easier to do this and get great crowds and acceptance when things are good and everybody's kind of happy. You know, you come during depressing times and then people are feeling like, oh my gosh, you know, things aren't right and something's wrong with the universe. That's not the time to come out and promote your religion, basically. So you know, it makes sense in that way, but the most important thing is that we're in bubble.
No, I get it. He's sharing the sheet before their financial slaughter.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, again, this is not intentional, but this is the type of thing that happens.
Sure, the Vatican Bank knows what's going on. It says, hey, Papa, time to get over there, because it's about to be lean times. We need to get a little bit more money in the old piggy bank for the jet copters. The Cult of Personality, Barack Hussein Obama. Mr. Dent, HarryDent.com, joins us. What else do folks need to know about the trend we're going into? I mean, I think we've gone from saying you're being proven correct to now the Federal Reserve is admitting this. We can put up the statement. It was in the Associated Press where the head of the Fed said that, you know, these numbers are troubling for the economy. And then we had the former head Bernanke say this shows that the economy's in trouble. Are they admitting that now because they know it looks too stupid to keep denying it, or what does that signify?
Well, I tell you what, Alex, the biggest trigger, you said there's many triggers. Yeah, one's the weakening of our economy because of demographics. The euro crisis is obvious. That's never going to come out of it without unraveling. But the two biggest triggers right now, number one is this chart I have, China. The China bubble is finally bursting. I've been harping on this for years now. Greatest bubble in history, stocks, real estate, especially real estate. And it's finally crumbling despite the government buying their own stock market. And you can see here, this has got another wave coming down, and it's been going sideways for over a month in narrow range. And I've been warning people, this is going to probably the biggest single trigger of this next mini crash. And I don't go to bed at night, Alex, without checking the China market that's about 14 hours ahead of us. So that's another important indicator. I think you're going to see that down another 20%. It's already been down 45%. And then we got a final chart, the oil chart. Every time oil goes down, oil companies get hit, frackers get crucified, debts start to fail, and whole countries get hit. So the oil, we've been warning, the oil keeps cracking down. It broke out down below $80 couple of years ago, we said, this is it. Oil's going to keep going down towards $10 to $20 a barrel, and oil looks like it's getting ready to break back down to $30 to $32. And again, that's just going to show Wall Street and investors the frackers are dead. They have a $1 trillion industry, $600 billion in leveraged debt and junk bonds, and tons of jobs, especially in Texas and North Dakota. And these companies are going to go under and never be able to come back again. It was only made possible by these very low interest rates set by the Fed, so these people could borrow cheap and speculate and produce oil that's normally high cost at a favorable price. So the fracking thing's over. So this is going to be one of the triggers that causes the next debt crisis in the U.S. All it takes is somebody like the subprime crisis in 2008 to start it, and then all other debts start going bad, and investors start worrying again. Investors have been, the bond markets and stock markets have been acting like we're in a hunky-dory world.
The philosopher Vernon Howard, I've quoted him many times. This quote is so profound because it tells what it's all ultimately about. The work that's ultimately going to be required to undo this mess that we've gotten ourselves into and stop supporting dominators and the world that they're helping to build is to look within. That's what true respect is about, looking within. Taking another look at yourself. Howard said that human sickness is so severe that few can even bear to look at it, but those who do look at it will become well. And this is the exact opposite of the New Age bunk teachings of never look at the negative, never look at the shadow, never look at the shadow material. All the deep, dark dirt that accumulates in the subconscious and the unconscious. That's what we need to look at and make conscious. Bring to the conscious level of awareness. If you're not willing to do that work, you're lost. And you're part of the dynamic of enslavement. The idea here is to look deeply within. Be introspective of the self. That's what development of true self-respect is all about. So that quote by Howard is image number 133. 134. Again, the dynamic is entirely about respect, and that takes place within. You got to look in the mirror. You have to look inside the self. Respect, again, comes from the Latin words re, which is a prefix meaning again, as in over again. Okay, and spectare, specto spectare means to look at. So respect means to look at again, to take another look at. What you're looking at again is your own thought processes. You're looking at your own subconscious and unconscious motivations. You're looking at your own psyche. You're looking deep into your own soul and finding out what you're made of, looking at what is there, why you're behaving the way you're behaving, why you think the way you think, what you're holding on to that isn't serving you. That's what the development of real self-respect is all about. It's a process. And until you can respect yourself, you can't give respect to another. How could you give something that you don't have within? I can give respect to other human beings because I have self-respect to give. I have to have it for me if I want to give it to other people. You can't give something that you don't have already to anyone else. And that nothing is truer than that than self-respect. Nothing could possibly be more true. You have to have self-respect in order to give respect to any other human being. When we go down to the deepest level of this, it is all about the awakening of the human consciousness. And the deepest expression of the awakening of consciousness is a deep knowledge, not only of who we are, but it's a deep knowledge of the objective reality of right and wrong. What is right action? What is not right action? Because it causes harm to others, and therefore it is a wrong action. That is not relative. It is not morally relative. It is objective. It exists inherently in creation, regardless of how we happen to feel about it. Right action is action which does not cause harm to other living beings. Wrong action is action which causes harm to other beings. We need to develop that true objective knowledge of that, and then put it into practice through our actions, such that our actions are not in contradiction with that knowledge. That's what non-duality is about. And once you're living like that, you have truly given birth to conscience within yourself, because that's what conscience is. Conscience is knowledge. It is the objective knowledge, the definitive knowledge of the objective differences between right and wrong behaviors. The objective difference. And it's definitive knowledge. It's certain. It isn't relative. It's 100% certain knowledge. That's what conscience is. And then standing in your conscience, actually acting conscience, acting within conscience, that is action. You know, that's wisdom. That's putting action into practice. Putting knowledge into practice. Wisdom is what you do with what you know. So if you're acting within conscience, that's wisdom.